The day was as cool as a perfect day in June. Yemi would have written a book about how fulfilling the afternoon might have been, if not for his miserable life. He was just 34, and he decided to forever remain single because he thought he was incapable of catering for himself, not to talk of a companion. As a matter of fact, he'd been jobless since he graduated from Obafemi Awolowo University with his second-class upper degree. 7 years of roaming about the country carrying a second-class upper degree that had yielded no result. Wasn't that enough for him to think he was hopeless? But hopelessness was not Yemi's situation. He'd found refuge in something he'd come to know as his comforter. Whenever the thought of his miserable life felt like consuming him, he would take a stroll to Wazobia Beer Parlor, where bottles of Gulda awaited him to comfort him for the time being. And today, Yemi was getting a warm sort of comfort from the 4th bottle of Gulda. On a Thursday like this, Yemi spent at least 7 hours at Wazobia. The place didn't get crowded until about 6 in the evening. But Yemi preferred to come as early as he could just to enjoy the solitude of the atmosphere before different people started trooping into the place. At about 5:30 in the evening, Yemi's attention got caught by something he knew he would never have a taste of. A beauty. A young, beautiful lady whose walking steps, in Yemi's terms, was superb, walked smartly into the bar and sat directly opposite Yemi. She wore a black blazer on a black pair of trousers. Her hair was jet black, smooth and straight, like the hair of models he'd seen on expression advertisement. She had a deep, rich chocolate cream complexion. Indeed, she was a kind of chocolate cream he would love to have a taste of. Her large, brown, flirty eyes danced about as she looked around the bar in search of a bar attendant. In Yemi's opinion, she was maybe 26 or so. From the look of things, she was quite a responsible lady. She signaled to a waitress and ordered 2 bottles of Heineken. Yemi thought it absurd for a young lady like this, and looking this responsible, to come drink at a bar. Moreover, she was drinking Heineken. That was strange, and she looked as though she had come alone. Perhaps she wasn't alone. Maybe, just maybe her boyfriend, or her fiancé, or perhaps her husband, or whoever might have come along with her to this ungodly place was probably coming behind. She glanced at Yemi for what seemed like 2 eternal seconds, and at that moment, Yemi concluded she was just as hopeless as he was. Her beautiful face was just probably covering the ugly pain inside of her. The waitress came over and politely served her the bottles of Heineken. Yemi watched as she drank, quenching her thirst for the beer. Why would a woman drink in such haste? She was beautiful, really beautiful to be such a drunk. She finished a full bottle in the space of 2 minutes without glancing at Yemi for the second time. 10 extra minutes passed without her opening the second bottle. Yemi thought talking with her might be good for both of them, but then he realized he couldn't afford to complicate things by adding her problems to his. He couldn't afford to carry another person's cross while still carrying his own. The lady suddenly looked up and caught Yemi gazing at her, which made her do nothing but smile. It was in that moment that Yemi realized that she had not come to the bar with anyone. In fact, his calculations told him that she wasn't in any way hopeless. That kind of smile wasn't for hopeless people. It was for people who needed something to make an absolutely perfect life. Now it was the lady's turn to gaze. Yemi knew she was staring hard at him, and so he tried to avoid eye contact. He wondered what she was thinking about him. Yemi was from a family of 7, all of them boys, and he was number 6. Over the last 20 years, he'd experienced the death of 5 of his brothers, all of them older than him. Perhaps the curse had claimed their lives, and now that it was his turn, the curse had decided to first make his life a living hell before finally taking him to the deadly hell. His late older brothers had not gone through suffering as severe as this. They just died mysteriously, one after another. He had considered himself a character playing a tragedy in the settings created by God. But really, was God the mastermind behind his tragic life? He didn't even know if God was interested in him, because truly, he lost interest in God a long time ago. Again, he glanced at the lady with the corner of his eyes and discovered that she was still gazing. Why was she gazing? After all, it wasn't in any way attractive. He was just a hopeless drunk who was waiting for his friends to come and settle his bills. But honestly, this lady looked really attractive. Yemi was sure she admired him. He just couldn't tell why. Yemi's uncomfortable state was on its way to the peak when his friend, John, finally walked in. After having few moments of pleasantries and small conversations, John glanced at the lady and whispered to Yemi, "Who be that chick?" Yemi whispered back, "Gaskiya, I don't know." John stared at her for a while. She was already on a second bottle, but this time she was drinking as though she was sipping a hot cup of coffee. "How long has she been here?" John whispered. "About 20 minutes or so." "And you haven't approached her?" "And why should I approach her?" Yemi cut in. Disappointment rushed out of John's face. "Come on, Yemi. You are a genius. You don't have to live like you are doomed. You deserve some happiness. Of course, you deserve to live life to the fullest." In other words, Yemi said, you need a woman in your life, a loving woman for that matter. Look at you, Yemi. You are 34. Do you want to get to 100 before you start enjoying life? I understand that there are a lot of questions you need to answer. But still, that doesn't stop you from enjoying life to the fullest. Have I ever complained to you about such matter? You know that such matters doesn't bother me. Of course you have not, Yemi. Come on. You don't have to. I am your friend. And I know what you need. You don't have to complain to me before I tell you what you need. Thank you, Yemi said. When I'm ready to settle down and have dozens of children, you wouldn't have to remind me. Does that mean you will let this particular lady slip away? Yemi laughed. Maybe I will let her slip to you. John grinned lightly and shook his head in complete amazement. He poured himself more Gulda and emptied the glass into his mouth. He quickly brought out his phone and set the alarm to 3 minutes. His plan was simple. He poured himself another round and arose. Where are you going? Yemi demanded. To where you should have gone 15 minutes ago. Yemi raised an eyebrow. Are you sure you know the implication of what you are about to do? Trust me, Yemi, John said, raising a glass of beer above his head. You just sit back here and watch me do my thing. He gave his friend a wink and moved towards the ladies' table. Hello, good evening. He tried to be polite, faking his voice to sound smoother. The lady looked up. Her eyes were fierce, like a flame of fire. Her cheeks looked tender, like that of a newborn baby. Her face altogether radiated what John called beauty. Good evening, she replied. Her response gave John a glimpse of the space in her incisors. The set of teeth in her mouth too sparked out beauty. Can I join you? Sure, of course, she said without hesitation, offering John a seat. It seemed to John she had been praying earnestly for him to come over. Quickly and gently, John started a smooth conversation with her and then apologetically introduced himself. The lady said her name is Folake. So Folake, John said, still swimming in his own smile. If you don't mind, My friend over there is feeling really lonely. Can I call him to join us? Sure, why not? John stood and called Yemi to come over. Yemi reluctantly obeyed and arose. He knew John was trying to force him to do what he didn't want to do. And of course, he had the power to resist, but he just couldn't bring himself to face such embarrassment. So, Folake, John said, smiling at the lady, "This is Yemi." To Yemi, "This is Folake." Yemi shook hands with her and forced out a smile. "Nice to meet you, Folake." "My pleasure." He reorganized himself and took a seat. Immediately, Yemi sat down. John's phone rang out loudly. When John picked into the phone, he realized that it was the alarm. Was it 3 minutes already? Time seemed to be flying. But really, his plan was working out as expected. He quickly excused himself as though he wanted to pick a very important call. Yemi, of course, knew his friend. He knew what John was capable of doing. He knew he'd been trapped by his friend. He knew that the lady even knew what had happened. Now, Folake wasn't speaking. In fact, she didn't look like she was interested in sparking up a conversation. So Yemi decided to man up. He gently started the conversation, much like John had done. Folake looked up and calmed the atmosphere with just a smile. That same smile that had convinced Yemi that she was living an absolutely perfect life was now beginning to settle the wave which has arose in his mind. But honestly, he didn't know what to do. He had no single idea what to do or say to keep the mood flowing from where John had left it. Not that he hadn't spoken to an attractive lady before. It was just that he wasn't too thrilled about the prospect of talking to this particular attractive lady. If he had body chemistry, it wasn't reacting, but if he had body confusion, it was reacting vigorously. Yemi was absolutely sure of that. Smooth and gently, their conversation flowed steadily before John returned. A month after they met at Wazobia Beer Parlor, Folake suddenly became a central figure in Yemi's life. She was everything: comfort, hope, and in fact, confusion. But Yemi's life hadn't changed. He was still broke. He was still jobless. In fact, he was still facing eviction from his house. Yet, Folake wanted one thing that didn't seem to make sense. She wanted marriage. Marriage ke? Is this girl going crazy? I met you just 1 month ago, and you want us to rush into getting married. Besides, I don't even know you. I don't know your family. I don't know where you came from. I know just little things about you, and you want us to get married. That does not seem to make sense. Yemi imagined. One fateful evening, she showed up at Yemi's room uninvited. She just walked in. Her eyes were serious. Her movements were calm. "We need to talk," she said. Yemi frowned. "Talk about what? I've told you I can't get married now. I have nothing. No money, no job, nowhere to even live. How can we get married when I can barely feed myself?" But Folake wouldn't listen. She was certain that things would change, as if she knew something that Yemi didn't know. Then, unexpectedly, she left the room. When she returned, she held a glass of water and a razor, startling Yemi with her next request. "Give me your hand," she demanded. "And what are you doing?" Yemi asked, his heart pounding. "Trust me, Yemi. Just give me your hand." Yemi hesitated, but something in her voice made him obey. He stretched out his hand. She pricked his palm. Blood dripped out into the glass. Then she pricked her own hand and added her blood to the mix. She lifted the glass. Her eyes locked on Yemi's eyes. "I swear to love you, Yemi. I swear to stand by you forever." Then she drank the blooded water. The whole thing looked strange. Yemi didn't even know what to say. He was as confused as hell. Then, to Yemi's surprise, she handed him the glass. "Your turn," she said. Yemi stared at the red-tinged water. His hands trembled, but he couldn't refuse. Somehow, he couldn't refuse. Slowly, he brought the glass to his lips and drank the blooded water. As soon as he finished, strange things began to happen. Somehow, Folake was no longer sitting on the bed. She was by the door. Then suddenly, she was back on the bed. Yemi blinked. How did she move so fast? He froze. His chest tightened. His breath came fast and shallow. In his confusion, Folake's voice broke through his panic. Her tone was soft but steady, and her words were heavier than anything he'd ever heard. There are things you don't know, Yemi. Things you must know. About your life, about your family. In fact, about me. Yemi stared, confused. His heart was racing. Slowly and gently, Folake revealed secrets that Yemi didn't think anyone could know. His brother's mysterious death, the curse that seemed to follow him, and his mother's involvement in all of it. Your mother, Folake said, your mother is a witch. Yemi's eyes widened. What? What do you mean? And then Folake slowly and gently explained the circumstances to Yemi. She cursed your family. She sacrificed your brothers. She locked your destiny. And now, Yemi, you are next. If you don't do what I ask you to do, you are going to die in the next 7 days. She rooted him to the spot. His world tilted, his mind racing. Folake didn't stop. She explained everything in chilling details, painting a picture too vivid for Yemi to dismiss. Her words hit him like a thunder. He couldn't speak. He couldn't move. He just stared like a zombie. But Folake continued, her voice calm as ever. I can save you, my love. If you trust me, if you believe me, I can save you. Yemi's head swelled with questions. How did she know so much about him? Really, who was this girl? Finally, he asked, who are you? Folake leaned closer. Her eyes were dark, but steady. Her words were slow and deliberate. I am an Akudaaya, she said. I am a living dead. The story continues in the next episode. Please look forward to it. You can also check out our other videos on our channel, like the Mysterious Twins series which we use to pilot the channel. Please subscribe to our channel, like the video, share it, and turn on the notification bell. These little things have a way of encouraging us to bring more African perspective story to you. And yes, we would like to hear your opinion about the story. Let us know what you think about the video in the comment section. Your feedback is very valuable to us. Thank you and gracious.